this will probably speak to the people who have struggled or currently struggle with seasonal depression. But for the very first time in my life, I found myself in a place where I was truly hopeless. And I had begun to lose all hope for the future I'd been praying for the last 20 years. And I stopped worshiping altogether. Whenever I was praying, I was mostly praying for other people. I stopped asking for myself because there are so many things that I've been waiting on for so long. Friends were having a hard time reaching me. All I wanted to do was stay in bed, and I couldn't bring myself out of it. So I got to a place where I was asking myself, what do you do when you've remained faithful? You're fasting, you're worshiping, you're praying, you're reading your word, you're staying steadfast in all of these things, and yet the promise still hasn't come. And it had even got to the point where I asked myself, did God even promise me these things? Or was it just my imagination? So that was really hard to reconcile, that you're remaining faithful, and after 10, 20 years sometimes, the promise still hasn't come. In fact, how do you keep hope alive when everything around you looks the exact opposite of what the promise is? And I don't know that I have the answer to that question, since I'm actively in that space, but that's where I'm at. And one thing I'll say is that the spiritual attacks, they are many and they are constant. In previous seasons of my life, I feel like it was just one thing or the other. I either struggled with schoolwork, or it was something in my relationship, or maybe it was a financial something, right? In this season, it's all of it. Constantly putting out fires, and I don't see any end in sight. In all of my praying and lamenting before God, nothing's really changed with my health and wellness journey, and I give myself a lot of grief for that, because it's not easy to undo 30 years worth of bad habits. But it's really hard for me to focus on health and wellness when I feel like I'm constantly putting out fires all around me. I mean, I only have but so much energy to give in any given day. So I haven't really been consistent with that. So there aren't really many changes to speak of. My finances are at an all-time low. I came from making, and I kid you not, $194,000 last year to making just north of $40K this year as a self-employed individual. And for those who don't know, I am a traveling embryologist by profession, and this season has just been a really rough one for me. And had I not, put money into savings and maxed out contributions and things like that, I don't know how, outside of God, I would have gotten through 2025. I have legitimately depleted my savings, my business accounts. I've even had to tap into retirement funds, and I'm looking at those penalties here for taking them out before 59 and a half. I'm looking at those penalties here next year because I had to tap into those pots to even sustain me. So, and to top it all off, I left work full time so that I could pursue medical school, and this is yet another application cycle where I have yet to hear back. So there's no news there either. I genuinely feel like nothing's going right. But at the same time, I am thankful for life. I'm thankful for the Lord journeying through this with me, the hardest season, as I've mentioned, that I've gone through in my entire life. God and community brought me out of a really dark place in the last few months, few weeks to speak. And I'm thankful for God surrounding me with women who are steadfast themselves in their prayer lives and reading of the word. And so in moments where I have been weak in my faith and I haven't been praying for myself, these women have been carrying me in prayer, and they have been warring on my behalf. And those prayers have sustained me in seasons where I wasn't even praying for myself. And I'm thankful to God for that. And they speak the truth over every one of the enemy's lies that I had begun to believe. They speak truth. They remind me of God's truth and of his word. And that truly it's been what has brought me out of this place. There was a particular Sunday a few weeks ago that I went up to altar call after service was over, and 3 separate women were called by God to lay hands on me. And this is a church that I do not go to. I was in town. I was with my brother at the time. I was at his church. So these people do not know me. I do not know these individuals. But these women were led by God to lay hands on me. And the things that they were praying for me about, the first one, she prayed for letting go of the need to be in control. The second woman prayed for surrender. And these are things that I have been asking God to help me with. The last woman, she explained that her son was actually involved in a car accident and was in the hospital. But before she left church, she said she felt God lead her to pray over me for healing. And so she did that for quite a while. And I just let go in that moment, and I was crying like a baby. And I thanked God for seeing me, because in that moment I felt so seen and I felt so loved. And after church, when I went home, I got a call from my best friend, the same woman who constantly is lifting me up in prayer and fasting and praying with and for me. She called me and she said, this morning I was on the phone with a mutual friend of ours, a really good friend of ours, and God led us to pray for you for over 40 minutes. And the Holy Spirit would not let up until we prayed over every area of your life, Caroline. When I say that entire weekend, I felt so seen and so loved by God. In the midst of everything that I'm going through, none of my circumstances have changed, but I felt like everything in the spiritual had changed. And so these are the moments where my faith is built back up and God fills me back up with hope. I guess that's what it means. Give me my daily bread. Give me my daily portion of hope for today. And that's exactly what he did. And he does that every single day through when the time spent in his word and through the community of women that I have been blessed and that have been built up around me. That's exactly how God shows up every single day. And so, honestly, now I have even more hope than I did before. And it's because I know that nothing is wasted in God's hands. Everything that I've been through this season, every weapon that the enemy fashioned against me, I know that they will not prosper. I know that I am a child of God. I know that I am called by God. And I know that everyone he calls, he qualifies. And so, although I might not see him working, I know that he is. And he's reassured me, like my best friend said on the phone that day, Caroline, God really loves you and he wants you to know it. I feel loved by God. And that means so much to me, going through this season with him. In a season where I feel like he'd been silent, or if he was speaking, maybe I wasn't the one, I was the one not hearing him. this truly does mean everything to me. And so it also reminds me that everything, in the same way that nothing is wasted in his hands, everything works out for the good of those who love God. There was no other condition in that verse. It's that you love God, and I love God with my whole heart. And so this is encouragement for a brother or sister going through a really tough time right now. God sees you right where you are. And I believe that he is working for us something good. And one thing I will say, the Holy Spirit will not let me forget that although 2025 was an incredibly difficult year, I will even say it was a traumatic year for me. In many ways, the bills always got paid. He proved himself to be my provider last year. In a year where I believe people in industry might have been intentionally keeping me out of work due to resentment or jealousy, whatever the case may be, and in a season where I wasn't, my cup financially wasn't being filled there, God still provided, and all of my bills were paid. And I ate. I had a place to rest my head at night, and I had everything that I needed. There was nothing that I needed that I lacked. He proved himself to be my provider. And it is for that reason that I get on here and I share these moments and I share these testimonies to encourage you to keep believing, to keep hanging on to faith, and not losing hope in him, because he will never fail us. So again, this is encouragement for a fellow brother or sister out here who is really going through a tough time like me. God has got us. Hang in there and just watch what he does. If this resonates with you and this is the type of content that you like to see more of, I would highly recommend you subscribing to this channel for more testimony videos and just lifestyle videos and things that God is working in and through me and in my life. I'm a very transparent person on this platform. I share the real and the raw of my life, not because I'm proud of everything that I've gone through, but because I see how God has used all of it for good. And I want others to believe that he can do the same for them. And so that's why I share things that I'm going through, things that I'm actively working on to get to a space of financial freedom, security, and the things that God is doing in my life. I share it on this platform transparently and vulnerably because I want you all, if you don't believe, to come to believing. And if you do believe, to keep believing. And so if this resonates with you, definitely subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so that you're notified every single time I post. But until then, I'll see you in my next video.